Welcome back. At the end of the previous part, we very much pressed on this testimony here. There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain. Now, I was convinced, and the dialogue seemed to point towards his trunk. So we need some way of presenting the trunk. And the only thing I can think of that we've got, other than, Gregson's trunk, which would be a stretch to be like, well, Gregson's trunk, therefore you're... No. It's going to be the commemorative photograph. Because there's his trunk right there. Boom.
Objection.
There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say. I would say the opposite is true. And what's that supposed to mean? That there is a way. That's what opposite me. Are you all there, mate? Far from being impossible for you to do, the transporting of Inspector Gregson's body back to Britain is something only you could do. What are you talking about, Ryunosuke? As well as being a judge, Mr. Jigoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. We learnt that when we first met you upon your arrival in London. Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. I must say I'm very envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? Like, Gregson's like right over there. Like, oh, that makes that entire scene morbid. He's just there. In the trunk. Oh no. I knew you were jealous. I presume you recalled this, Judge Jigoku. It's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will note, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside, definitely big enough for a body. Mr. Naruhodo, surely you're not suggesting... I'm afraid I am, yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Jigoku's trunk. Oh, it's so morbid. It's like just rethinking that scene with the chandeliers over there and stuff like that. It just... Gregson's just there, dead. Oh, chandeliers, yes. Order in the court. I'm skeptical, counsel, that a grown man's body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk. Again, we know for sure it will. It could. Because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside this trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Jigoku? Man, a few words. But inside his trunk, how horrifying. And after we'd spoken with you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street, taking your trunk with you in a cab to deposit the inspector's body. I don't have to listen to this nonsense. Dr. Gordy, the coroner who examined the body, has confirmed the possibility. She has acknowledged there are signs that steps may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator. Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of the requisite size are few and far between. Yes, I'm sure they are. But one place they're certainly found is on large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrically refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages. And the SS Grouse is no exception. Professor Mikitaba told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Jigoku? however much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer. Well, this is all very heartening. I can see that it was a wise move letting Asogi and you embark on this study tour. What are you talking about now? Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you've both laid firm foundations for that already. Judge Jigoku, please stop diverting attention from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond? Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there? Why ever not? Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? It's quite logical. The actual scene of the crime. Again, there's a bullet hole in the wall, so... The prosecution's stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. As the accused, Barak van Zykes shot the victim at point-blank range. Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this time, the defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale. Look at his face. I'm afraid that's how the logic reasoning the British are known for really works, young stripling. The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly. I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim. That's the only fairy tale here. How can you say that? Quite simply. Because that claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession. Does it? Very tantalizing, counsel. I think you had better explain yourself to the court, don't you? The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. Okay. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. What? Prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. Okay, let's go through it. Like Red-Headed League article, no. Mr. Vigil, no. Letter of introduction, no. Dismissal notice, no. Red hairpiece. Flame, red wig found at the scene of the crime on Fresno Street. Presumably it belonged to Inspector Gregson. Now, why was this even here then? Again, with the logic of everything going on. So I've completely forgotten that aspect. Like, why was this here? It's just like, I don't know, did he throw it down? Oh, because he fell over and it probably landed on his head. I can't remember like what the details were with that. Like, maybe that's it? Candelabrum from the wall of the room on Fresno Street where the inspector was found dead. The top of one of the candles appears to have been blown off. So how did it get blown off? But that doesn't... I need something that proves he wasn't there. Like but the question is, how did everything else end up the way it did? The photograph, we know about that. The gun. Don't see any bullets in the gun. Doubt it's the photograph at all. Like, I don't know how that would even fit into it at this point. Maybe later, but at this point, no. Victim was shot in the chest at close range from the front, resulting in instant death. Scorch marks at the point. Instant death, though. Caliber gun use matches that of standard issue firearms for members of the judiciary. Interesting. I think I'm getting some kind of logic here. because it's that case of like, if he was shot, why is, like, shot at point blank range and died instantly? Why is he curled up? Like he was placed inside a big box. So is it just the photograph? His trunk, maybe? The blood on his trunk? I mean, that could have been from... It's a bit dry. Very tantalizing, Counselor. I think you had better explain yourself to the court, don't you? The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street, so we just have to prove he wasn't on Fresno Street when he was shot. I feel like it's either Gregson's trunk or the fact he's curled up. The curled up could be because he was placed inside the trunk, which does prove he was inside the trunk. But I'm leaning more towards Gregson's trunk itself because of the blood stain. Look at this dark stain here. Do you think? Yes, I'm afraid so. I think it's blood. I knew you were going to say that, so that presumably means that this was present at the scene when Inspector Gregson was killed. Yeah, that's the bit that I'm coming back to in my head. It's like, but could the blood be there because of it being placed at the scene as well? When he come out of the trunk and there's blood on the floor, so the blood could have got on the side? It's the most logical conclusion, yes. I think Jean has been carrying this around with her. If you didn't know any better, I suppose it does look like a grease stain from all the fish and chips. I'm gonna go with this, just to see what they say.
Take that!
And maybe we'll get more from this. The Japanese really are a curious breed. To proffer an argument with such conviction only to present such nonsensical evidence. At least let me make my argument. Perhaps my Japanese friend's inexplicable thinking is why people talk of the mystique of the East. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm not the only Japanese around here. Do you even have a mirror? The court is not interested in the mystique of anything. You'll be penalized accordingly. Was the victim killed in the room on Fresno Street, or was he moved there after his death? It's the curled up. There's one piece of evidence we have that shows the answer to that question surprisingly clear. Perhaps you should try to present the correct one this time then, Mr. Naruhodo. Yeah, you think? Yeah. My logic was there. I mean, the curled up is just as equally flimsy as the blood, I'd say. Are you going to try again? Or can't you hold your hand steady enough to point it out? That's assuming the curled up is right. Might be wrong on that. The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. Let's give it a go. It doesn't show that he was killed because... we already covered that, really. Right, let's give it a go. The curled up.
Take that!
Oh. Photograph of the victim in the very location you claim he wasn't killed. Yes. But the point is the posture of the body itself. Yep, it's the curled up. It's the curled up. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question that his body would have been curled up in a ball like that. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. He could have easily have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal.
Objection!
He's meant to have died instantly, though. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Jigoku, but it's your logic that is flawed. What? According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself into that position. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now. You're suggesting The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street. Before it was coldly turned out on the floor from inside of a large travel trunk. No, you're quite right. The shape of the body. It looks exactly as if it had been kept in a confined space. Oh, yes, it does. Yes. Judge Jigoku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it would contain traces of the victim's blood. Ugh. Present my trunk? I refuse. What? On what grounds? I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan. I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's baseless accusations. In other words, Judge Jigoku, there is blood in your trunk. I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that allow me to... At this moment, you're not a government minister. You're a witness in trial in Great Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside this courtroom may be. You will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth. Oh, yes, the truth. Yes. Order in the court. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what's it to be? You can't be serious. You did it? Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Soge? What? Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense. He's gonna point the finger at Kazuma, isn't he? What? Phew. Dear God. Outrageous. So it was you. You admit... No, I admit to nothing more than what I've said. Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection. What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean? I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else. You can't still deny it. If you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man? As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. He's definitely pointing the finger towards Kazuma. And moreover, he'd already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life. Oh. That's right. Who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Soge. Phew. No. I never thought you'd stoop to this, Seishiro Jigoku. You've taken the words straight out of my mouth. Prosecutor Kazuma Soge. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you could pin the crime on me, did you? Well, the prosecution's counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question. Yes, on an assassination mission, no less. You wouldn't. So, what do you make of that, young stripling? You've heard my testimony now, and that's all I have to say on the matter. I'll admit nothing more. I don't believe this. Counsel for the defense. What is your position now? The court awaits your response to the witness's assertion. The assertion that on the night in question the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Sogi. Wasn't he like at a boarding house or whatever? This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Very well. The defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. The idea that the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Asogi is impossible. Judge Jigoku, let me remind you of something you said only a few minutes ago. You claim that logical reasoning is the future of the judicial process. It is, no question. Well, logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, that it would have been impossible for Prosecutor Asogi to commit the crime. What? The court will only accept an argument that is supported by compelling evidence. So present what you have, counsel. What proof is there that the alleged demonstrates the impossibility of Prosecutor Asogi's involvement? Wasn't he at a boarding house, and how do we prove that? Telegram from Japan, no. No. The hell can prove it? Don't think that will prove it. I was just remembering that's the thing we've got. It's like, hold on a minute. It's got to be something we got from the boat. It's not going to be a telegram from Japan. It can't be this. Small machine part that Mr. Sholmes found in Judge Jigoku's cabin on the SS Grouse. It's now clear it's the missing crown of Inspector Gregson's pocket watch. Like, it can't be that. That doesn't do anything in terms of... We'll have a look at it, though. So this little part of Inspector Gregson's pocket watch was found inside Judge Jigoku's trunk. That's right. Which it cannot possibly be denied is extremely significant, we know that now. And what do you call it again? This small, round piece of the watch? The crown. The pocket watch is quite useless without it. Yes, that's right, the crown. What a very grand name for such a tiny part, because it looks like a crown, I get it. That's exactly what you said the last time we discussed it, Mr. Naruhodo. I don't think there's anything else. Okay, what we got here then? Evacuation drill notice 31st of October. Upon departure from Port of Dunkirk, all crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 PM in order to review evacuation procedures. The drill will take 20 minutes. Crew to resume duties as soon as the drill is over. Got nothing there. Notice about practice. Evacuation to be carried out on the crew of the SS Grouse the night before the ship arrived in Dover. Although that does... Ha! Ha 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 ha! My mind, logic and reasoning, you know. Aha! 31st of October. Yes. He was in the boarding house thing, wasn't he? And we know there was a register. He said this, you can prove it. He pointed out you could prove it by just looking at the register. And that would mean, according to the register, on the 31st of October, when this was the only opportunity he had to kill him, the only opportunity, he was at a boarding house. So we present the idea of like, this was the only opportunity, as we've discussed previously. At that time, he was in a boarding house in Dunkirk, and we can prove that if we, you know, send a telegram to Dunkirk or something. We'll go with that. This itinerary for crew members of the SS Grouse, my lord. This is conclusive proof. An itinerary? How does that prove anything? Judge Jigoku, the moment you acknowledge that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant. What? Why? On the night in question, as always, a crewman sentry was on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside the cabin. Absolutely, because it's inconceivable that the guard wouldn't have heard it and come to investigate. So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. Yeah, there's only that little window of time he could have done it, and he wasn't there. And that narrows it down to the 20 minutes just after 10 o'clock as indicated on the itinerary. Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far. But the crucial point is this. When the evacuation drill took place, the steamship had already put to sea from the port of Dunkirk. Ah. Now, clearly the murder could only have been committed by somebody who was aboard the vessel at the time. But Prosecutor Asogi stated in yesterday's proceedings, I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life, so I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent that night at a boarding house in the town, and returned to England the following morning. The registry book, which I'm sure the court will agree is conclusive proof that Kazuma Asogi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing. Gah! No, absolutely not. I don't accept that at all. What do you mean? The boy is just saying that to exonerate himself. We can't trust that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, after he left my cabin, he hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship. Just waiting for his chance to come back. No, that's out of the question. Isn't it, Kazuma? As the defense rightly recalls, I disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. And as I said yesterday, I signed my name in the accommodations register book. All extremely easy to verify and undeniable proof. There's no escape this time. You can forget that you're a judge or a government minister. It's time you gave the court an honest answer, as a common man. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. Then you dumped the body in the room on Fresno Street, made it look as if the murder had happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it, says Shiro Jigoku. It was that damn trial 10 years ago. That's when all this began. Looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was doomed already. Gonna break another one. And such. Yep, there we go. Whoa, careful, you need to stab yourself in the head. What the hell? It's over. My life is over. I mean, it's not, but yet. A British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. No, it was hardly a request, it was a demand. And for that, you decided to recruit Mr. Asogi. But things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain. And you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement. Because I was already on my way to Britain at that time in Kazuma's place. And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation. To eliminate the mark myself, personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that. The International Forensic Science Symposium, I presume. That's right. I decided it would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain, so I enlisted the help of my British counterpart, and made arrangements for a pretext that would take the Inspector to Dunkirk counterpart. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper. What? The Reaper? But there's only one person who could have done that. The mastermind of the entire operation. The Reaper himself. So that means that the assassin exchange was was all planned by the Reaper. I'm not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. Literally counterpart. Counterpart. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was all a trap designed to lead him to France and his own death. Oh, how awful. It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him time to attack me. I choked him until he lost consciousness. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time, waiting. But the 20 minutes after 10 o'clock, I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came round and went for me in a reckless move. Bang, I said. I had received the British-issue gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. I never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that. So, the revolver belongs to you, does it? And then the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Grouse. Which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in the room on Fresno Street. The young judicial assistant over there has already answered that question. There was no way I could take the body up on deck to throw it over the side. That's precisely where all the crewmen were gathered for the evacuation drill. So before the first-class cabin sentries returned, I took the corpse to the refrigeration room. And then on arrival in Dover, you concealed the body in your trunk in order to smuggle it past the border police. I knew I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced and the body was found in London. In that case, you must have known. You must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. Yes, my British counterpart, again, the word counterpart, sent me everything I need to know. The inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock that afternoon, in order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone, from whom he would take back his police identification. I decided that man would be the perfect person to set up as the culprit, so I took a hackney carriage over there with the body still in my trunk. That must have been just after we took this photograph with you at the hotel then. Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was more than a little nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling little firecrackers. Miss Venus, of course. I conceived of the candle trick there and then, so I donned a simple disguise and approached the girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot. What sort of disguise? For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece in his own traveling case, so I put that on, although I suspect I drew more attention to myself in that than I would have otherwise. I'd like to have seen that. The hairpiece we found at the scene. The inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation. I only arrived at the room at around 4:45, so I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board and set up my little candle trick. I arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later, so that Mr. Boone, who was due to arrive at 5, would walk straight into a trap. Except, at the last moment, I made a careless blunder. What was that? I imagine it was the bag of fish and chips. I didn't notice that it had fallen out of his overcoat pocket when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. I put it back into his pocket the following morning, but... well, seems the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish and the chips. Anyway, that's everything. All the sordid details of what I did. I don't think it's the whole story, the whole thing, though. Just this. There's more. Like you said, it's all to do with that trial 10 years ago, so... I've heard enough. We've arrived at the truth about the murder of one of the country's most capable and respected police inspectors. The witness will be tried in the coming days. For a crime of such a vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty. An exchange of assassins. What a foolhardy idea. Mr. Jigoku, one last detail. Who was your counterpart in Britain? Who was the mastermind behind the assassin exchange? Nothing you say now can make matters any worse for you. Just tell us. Enough. I've already told you that I cannot say. Even though, as things stand, you may very well never set foot in your homeland again. What are you waiting for? Can't we get this over with now? It's finished. All of it. I'm finished. Then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I now pronounce the findings of this court. This man before us has admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson. Oh my. The fire rises. Seishiro Jigoku, it is the opinion of this court that you should be found guilty. And may I remind all those present of the strict confidentiality demanded by this closed court.